Hello, everyone. I guess we'll start. Onegaishimasu. So, small class. I know there's going to be a small class. I had quite a few people that have other things, other commitments. That's okay because we are going to be covering the second rule or characteristic. But before I tell you what it is, let me read this. This is from a Russian novel written in 1879. Love all creation, both the whole and every grain of sand. Love every leaf, every ray of light. Love the animals, love the plants, love each separate thing. If thou love each, thou wilt perceive the mystery of the universe in all. And when once thou perceives this, thou wilt thenceforward grow every day to a fuller understanding of it, until thou come at last to love the whole world with a love that will then be all embracing and universal. So, number two, love all creation, or as it's literally translated as love and protect all you meet. Japanese is Banyu Aigo. Um, and let me just read a little bit, just a couple paragraphs from Will Reed's book on this subject. He's got quite a bit written, so I just kind of condense it down into two paragraphs. Everything is tied directly to the universe in spirit and origin. We are all parts of the universal body. A person who has developed this awareness to a higher degree is one who has approached the pinnacle of spiritual development. All too many people preach love and brotherhood without practicing it. When the mind is calm, its relationship with other things and people becomes obvious. The desire to love and protect flow naturally from this awareness. Big topic. Where do we start with this? Well, it's easily said than done. Love all things. Uh, we tend to be very biased on what we choose to like or dislike. But what I think Tori Sensei is getting at here is just having that universal expression of kindness to everyone. And I think that is lost in a lot of things. We get so busy with everything. Uh, we don't connect fully with everything. And when that's not happening, then it's very easy uh, to be selfless. And that's basically what I think he's talking about. I would like to ask Christelle what she thinks of this subject. Good morning. How are
Good
you?
morning, Sensei. Okay. So, okay. I think for me it's important during this time, pandemic times, that that protect implication of love and protect each creation. Um, okay. I think it's important, even if you have a different opinion about coronavirus. If you have the opinion that even if you have an Aikido student, you have the opinion, or some people have the opinion that the coronavirus isn't there. It's not. It's all a lie and a fate. I don't know if you not if it's the right English word. And we have an Aikido student that thinks in this way, and he is harming through this opinion the other people, or he's not protecting the other students, going through big demonstrations where all the in Germany we had on Saturday we had a big demonstration, and 20,000 people. The police tells us that go to this demonstration, and they are wearing no masks and no distancing and so on. And we had to confront this student with that behavior and said that we don't want that, that he should go for 14 days in quarantine. I don't know if it's the correct English word. And we try our best for a long time to include it, but the student is getting more and more fanatic with this and thinks he knows the best for all. So, and yesterday it happens that we have to tell him that he has to do this 14 days quarantine. And I think he has not the mind to protect, even if the other people have another opinion or have another idea of what is really means to protect other people. So I have the opinion, or maybe not the opinion, the feeling, and that it is important, even if the other person has really a different opinion of the situation, to throughout your loving kindness and protection and healing for the other students, you have to put your opinion or idea of how things are back in the back and really and wear a mask, even if you have the other opinion that that it is not you are not really harmful for the others. Because of your love, I think you have to choose to put your own idea backwards. I don't know if it is really English. But this person reacts in a way that he said, okay, then I leave Aikido. And I think this is not the way. And I just discussed this also with my teacher. And this happens yesterday. And so you get me right at this moment. And this is what I think now about this behavior. And I regret this behavior, but I think it's very important to love and protect all creation, even it is totally against your view of the world. Yes, you have to look what is the best for all people, and when they have harm through your behavior, it's important that you look what is the best for all. Okay, that's what I want to tell.
Sure, this is very fresh for you. So let me
Yes.
see if let me clarify and make sure I understand everything you just said. So basically, there's a student in your dojo that doesn't believe in the coronavirus, and therefore he went to a demonstration where they weren't social distancing, they weren't wearing a mask, and
Yeah.
you asked him to do a 14-day
Yes.
quarantine. Okay,
Yes.
that's
So that
basically
he didn't harm the other people, that we know
sure,
that it's okay,
sure.
that he doesn't. No?
Oh, I understand that. And then
Okay.
you said you spoke to your teacher. Was that Toby Vogel
Yes,
Sensei or somebody else?
Toby
Toby
Vogels.
Vogel. And he
And I spoke to
decided.
the other students out too,
Mhm.
uh, what they think about it, and we really try to include him. Yes, for a long time. Yes, but this at this weekends it happens, and in Germany there was a really big demonstration, and they the people at the demonstrations, they don't use social distancing. They really aggressive at the police and so on, and it's a big okay. Some people maybe behave not so in a wild way or aggressive way, but some to do, and because of the mass of people, So the opportunity to harm other people because you get the coronavirus and yes, it's really a possibility. Yes, uh, I think it's really not okay. Mm.
Sure, I don't disagree with anything you said. So he decided to leave the dojo as a
Yes,
result.
yeah, Aikido. Yes, yes,
Aikido in general. I see.
yes. And I think
Yeah,
that's not okay. Yes, okay, but he has to make his decision. Okay, no,
right,
okay. Mm.
right.
And I
Yeah,
think the Aikido way is to protect and love all creation, and this means really protect in this kind of, even if the opinion is an yes. In my case, I would protect the other people, even I had the opinion that it is really nonsense with coronavirus and so, because I love the other people and the students and so I would stay back with my opinion and do what is useful, really useful for the other people, even if I'm not right in my opinion. I think this is okay, Aikido.
mhm. Yeah, I don't disagree. I would say that you should probably maintain contact with the person, keep in touch with them.
Yes,
We
but
want
I
to help
think it's
you out.
yes, I do it before. Yes, yes, I do it before, and try to support him. We all do it. Yes,
Good,
but
good.
I think he choose it, or
Yeah,
the student choose it, not me. I
right.
try to support him. Yeah, okay. Hmm?
No, that's good. We're everybody's going through this differently. It's this
Mm,
you see in the news a surge. I mean, we had several, well over 200 cases just today reported due to delayed reporting. Um, yeah, this I sent an email to Sensei, as a matter of fact, and where I'd sent an article because there was an article in the news today about Japan, about how there was a surge in Tokyo and Osaka, and that I have a good friend, Mayumi, who does Aikido, and she said that her brother, who lives in Tokyo, said he saw it coming. He said that the train stations are still crowded, the subways are still crowded. People aren't taking it very seriously. It's kind of like the pandemic's still here, folks. It hasn't gone away, uh, and people, we're social animals. We want to be out with other people. That's just our nature. So yeah, it's still there. I mean, we're still not training, and we probably won't be training until there's a vaccine. They're pretty strict here on Maui with it, and the government basically said you can't go back and train until we say it's okay. But yeah, it's Curtis Sensei's had he's opened it up discussion, and there's been some concerns with people. We had a gathering at his house, and everyone was being very careful, about that. And yeah, this topic today ties in kind of, we want to love and protect all people. It's very challenging, as you can see. And if you just listen carefully to what this said, you know uh, a person who has developed this awareness to a higher degree is one who has approached the pinnacle of spiritual development. And that's to me, when I read that sentence, I was like, wow, this is pretty serious shit here. They when if you read the whole, if you have Will Reed's book and you go through and read that whole section, it's much more detailed than I wanted to go into and write out and read to you guys, because you guys can read it. But I do want to talk to you guys about that and just see where you're at with your training, where you're at with dealing with this basic principle. I mean, it's so simple, right? Sometimes the simplest ones are the hardest. And I think Lily and Paiva Sensei would like to carry on, because I can tell she would like to talk.
Aloha, everybody. I love to talk. I'm not sure I'm always ready to talk. Love all creation. I think that's awesome. I think that the universe has a balance, and we may not always see what that balance is. So we like to put labels on things instead of, the big scope. And I think my job has been to notice when I catch myself labeling something as good or bad, instead of just accepting what I can accept, what I need to accept, and the things that you can't, do anything about. And I'll give you a real interesting little story I had. I had two teenagers come into the dojo. This was about a couple of years ago. And they're sisters, and they're walking across the parking lot, and they're arguing all the way to the door of the dojo. And then, they step out of their slippers, step into the dojo, and turn around and bow. And one of the sisters says to me, "So Sensei, why is there war?" And, the quick answer was, "Why are you arguing with your sister? Peace, calmness, and love starts at home. It's not something we're supposed to be sending off over everywhere else. We need to be the peace first. We need to find the inner peace and share that inner peace and that love. And love everything for what it is, regardless of how we feel about it. And maybe sometimes, yes, we might be able to help out or just being kinder and loving in its own way is kind of a universal love that is spread and shared. So I love creation to the best that I can, and I'm working on loving it all the time."
Right. Yeah, you said something that, Curtis Sensei always gives that little spiel about the we'll see, the whole we'll see thing. And that kind of comes to mind when I think of this topic, as well as, another thing you just said is it starts from within. It starts with us, and that's a Suzuki Sensei mantra was, don't think that you can control anybody else until you can control yourself. And don't think that you can control yourself until you can control your breath. I mean, Stickler spot on, breathe, 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 you start, being able to control your breath, then you can start, actually demonstrating that to other people. I would like to ask Olaf Schubert Sensei how he's doing and how this topic fits with him.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Fortunately, this topic doesn't evade anyone. So we all have to deal with it. I mean, the love or creation. Also the Corona thing, we all have to deal with it somehow. But to stay to the dojo and Aikido, in the dojo, you also have this love or creation is sometimes a challenge, because we all know that there are kind of what we like to label as difficult students who we have from experience that they do things that we don't like. Let's put it in general. And that we have training partners that we sometimes maybe try to avoid because they make the training difficult for us also. And we tend to not pick those and tend to pick the training partners that make it easier for us and let us shine more, And as Paiva Sensei just said, it starts right home here. We can't talk about or complain about others making war or being living dissension out on the streets and stuff. If we behave with our Aikido friends on the mat with our fellow students and avoid people that we find difficult and or even have negative feelings about them. So maybe a way to train at this is to consciously pick those students and work through it and maybe find a common ground here. And this has to do with what you just said, breathe, 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 or I would say sit, sit, sit. The more you find your true self in you, you can see it in others too, and then you see that we're all the same. And it's just my opinion that makes us separate, actually. So we have lots of practice here in the dojo. And we do practice. Since 6 weeks, we have Aikido training. So we can experience this here every week. Also including the Corona thing, that people, of course, they carry their opinions in the dojo also. So, yeah, lots of practice.
So you're back training?
Yeah, since 6 weeks or so.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah.
But that only can continue if people outside continue with keeping distance, wearing masks, and all that. This is an exception in Germany that we can have contact sport, but all the other rules stay because they rightly so discovered that people need a little bit of contact and they need to continue their sports and dancing and this to keep people sane, you know? So they made an exception for sports, but not for the rest. So distancing and mask wearing and sanitizing, this all stays in place. Even if we are in the dojo and we have finished training, the rule is that we don't hug and that we don't spit in each other's faces. So we keep distance while talking, you know. It's only exception for the mat.
And are you limited to how many people you can have?
We did have a limit, but that limit was lifted. So we now can train. So coming Saturday, we start our summer camps that we have every year for a week.
All right, right. Oh, well, good. I'm glad to hear that. That's excellent. Yeah, you know, just going back to what you had said, you know, many of you have heard the stories of Curtis Sensei talks about Barbara Miller and how it impressed him because she was one of those students that a lot of people didn't like back in the day. And I've seen it just since I've been on Maui, where several students won't get along and they've gone into Curtis Sensei's office to try to work out their differences. And I'm not, of course, in those meetings, but I do, you know, Sensei does confide in me in some of the things, and students tend to forget sometimes all their training when they start having a little bit of conflict between one another. And, you know, it could be, you know, in the locker room or, you know, in a party or whatever, and you'll see it they'll just go off. And you know, Curtis Sensei, I remember him telling the two students that, come on, you guys gotta get along. This is what we're practicing here. We're practicing non-dissension. And they were just, you know, I could tell they still didn't to this day like one another as a result. And just different personalities sometimes conflict. But that's when you're putting that I am self more important. You know, you think a lot of yourself. So, and that's not just them, it's everyone. You know, we just have to put ourselves aside and love and protect everything, you know. I would like to ask Charles Boyer Sensei, how are you doing today?
Yeah, hi Sensei, doing great. How are you?
Good. How's this topic for you?
Yeah, I forget with Celine, my family, I mean my loved ones, I forget all of this stuff. So yeah, it's an ongoing work as I see it. But I'll talk about it in a little different way, from a different angle, if that's all right.
Sure.
Yeah, so I mean, the way I live with this is that I recognize that you know I didn't control my the conception, birth, the fact that I grew. You know, all these things just happened, right? It's not something I did to make those things happen. In other words, you know, and then the air that I can't control that. The air is here. I can breathe it. This organism that we call a body just kind of happens to have everything it needs in order to be here and to allow this experience to take place. You know, to be on this earth. You know, it's not for something that I do. It's all the conditions are there to allow this to happen. And so what I'm saying is that is, from my understanding, that in itself is love, right? The fact that everything is in place so that I can talk to you here, so that there can be this conversation, so that there can be a conversation with students. And yeah, and it's again, it's nothing that I do. So it's like the shoga, the small self, really has nothing to do with it. And so my job, or the job here, is to just, it's like a choice to either join this process, this circle of development, as the Shokushu calls it, and participate in it, right? To express that through this this being that's here today. So that's the way I approach it. Of course, as I started, I often forget. And you know very well. I mean, even with friends on the mat, off the mat, we often forget. And it's, as you said, it's very simple, but it's a big deal, right? So that's what I have to say about it. That I am just like, I have the choice, or there is this choice, to be a part of this big picture or not. And yeah, as much as I can, as much as my training allows, I choose to participate in it. So, yeah.
So would you be open to sharing the story when you were in Maui and you had just got, I think you had just got promoted, there was some sort of test, and Celine had come on the mat? You know what I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah, she's here in the kitchen, so she's going to hear this story.
Okay. If you don't want to share, that's fine.
I will share it anyway. I'll deal with the consequences later. Yeah, so I think, yeah, this was a long time ago, right after I moved to Hawaii, and there was a seminar with Shinichi Toi Sensei on Maui. And in fact, I believe it was the 50-year anniversary of Aikido in Hawaii. And I was told to take a Shoden, a key test. And after the test, so I took the test, and then everybody was, saying congratulations after this test. And Celine came up to me to give me a big hug. And I said, not on the mat, not here. And yes, so that wasn't like the worst of it, right? I mean, that was bad enough. And she, we barely knew each other. We'd met a year before, so we knew each other for 1 year. And I just moved to so that we could live together. And no, I guess to add insult to injury, like literally 20 seconds after I told her disappointed countenance, this thing that I said, Ileana Shaner, Shaner Sensei, David Shaner Sensei's wife, who, I knew very well from my days in South Carolina, just came up to me and just grabbed me and gave me a big hug, right in front of her. So, yeah, it did not go well. And I'm, the penance is still going on for that one. But, I mean, Celine's very forgiving, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it was a hard one to live down. And yeah, I mean, that was one of those moments where, propriety and how, like, what my image in this environment took over, right? So we live and learn, right? And as all my teachers have told me, when we have a disappointment of any kind, this was a big one, but a disappointment of any kind, what is the universe trying to teach with this thing that happened? What is it trying to show or demonstrate? What is the lesson? So that's how I take those things now. Back then, of course, I argued and debated and tried to explain my way out of it. And now I'm, getting somewhat softer around the edges and more able to allow those disappointments to be a lesson. So, yeah, how's that?
Oh yeah, thanks for sharing. I mean, I remember you told that story a while back, and I totally related to that story just from my experience of, you have this image on the mat. Come on, I mean, this is very serious business we're involved in. So there's no hugging, none. So I can totally relate to that. I would like to ask Kayomi if she could, how does this subject?
Thank you, Sensei.
Oh, thank you.
Love of creations. It's very challenging. I think depending on the day, actually, I feel like I have like little maybe ring inside of me when I feel very loving and I feel well, physically and also emotionally. This tend to expand. Like, I include me and my husband, my friends, and then if I'm feeling really well, I can include the students and community, and even I am loving the plants and the animals. It gets larger, but as soon as something happens, it gets just shrinks like this, and then everybody is outside of me. And sometimes it gets so small, I start hating myself too. So it's just, I think I read from somewhere when I think, I can't remember where I read, but if the ring gets so small, we have many parts of ourselves, so we start hating part of you. But then when you give a lot of love, and then they start, expanding. So mine is very unstable. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's nice, but as soon as something happens, I guess I get small. Like, I guess that's Shoga. I would think my ego gets so strong, and I don't want to let anybody in. Even just, part of me, I don't like it. It becomes enemy. But then I think, if I feel a lot of love, then it gets softer and bigger. And I can see that, like, I feel connection to animals or even plants. And I think a mask, wearing a mask as a Japanese person, I grew up with it. So it's nothing. It just to protect not only myself, but that's for other people. And I think a lot of people have problem because with wearing a mask, I don't even know why, but then I heard that one woman on the TV said, I feel fine. I'm not afraid, so I don't have to wear a mask. And I think she's totally missing the point. I think she's only in this little cycle. She protects her. She's fine, but it's not that. I think mask is for bigger circle of people and even other things, and the same mentality happens when we, trash our trails. A lot of people start walking because they have a lot of time now. And then I see the masks on the floor, on the ground. I see people trash things. They take their dogs, but they leave their poo on the side of the trail. Those are the things that they don't, their circle gets so small sometimes. And I think it's important we are tender to ourselves so that it gets softer and bigger. And maybe many people one day will start wearing masks. That's right.
That's a really good analogy that you just, talked about, collapsing and expanding, basically, collapsing upon yourself, even into self-hate versus, we wake up, you have a good day, you feel good, you start including more and more and more, but hence, anytime you get a toothache, you're thinking about woe is me. And not thinking about anything else other than your damn tooth that hurts. So yeah, that's something, that's a really good analogy that you share. And talking about the mask wearing and seeing stuff, garbage or whatever on the ground. I remember I can't quite remember who I was with. It was a Japanese teacher. Trying to remember who it was. We were in the restroom at some place or some restaurant or whatever. We're in the restroom, and it wasn't like the sinks were not cleaned very well. It was kind of dirty. I think this was Shoji Sensei or somebody. It was in California, and we're in the bathroom, and he is washing his hands. And then he gets done washing hands. He takes out a lot of paper towels. He starts cleaning everything. He's like totally cleaning the sink, cleaning everything. And I'm like looking at him, I'm going, oh, wow, Sensei, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm making it nice for the next person who comes in here. And that was just his mindset. He saw that it was dirty and it's a public at this restroom, and he wanted to make it nice for the next person. And I tell you, I was amazed. I was like, wow, really? We should do that? That was my mindset, because I didn't even have the concept of ever doing anything like that in my life. Not at a public place, but there he was doing it. And I was like, oh yeah, I get it. Kind of. I need to have that mindset more often, because that's just what he was all about. I mean, if anybody knew Shoji Sensei, that's totally what he was all about. He was a great cool guy, a great teacher. I would like to ask Susan Grigsby Sensei to talk about this subject. How are you doing?
Hi, I think I'm on now.
You are on.
Thank you. Good to see everybody. So I, in terms of the saying or the rule, love all creation, I think that's a nice aspirational kind of idea. I do not, for myself, think that I'm on a big path to try to get to my pinnacle of some kind of spiritual something. So there's things in people in creation I'm never going to love, and that's just, I accept that. I do try to learn how to work with or get along with people that are people who are very different from me. But I've also read things that say, people who are vexatious to your spirit, you should just, not engage with them. So I kind of have both of those parts kind of floating around in my head. And there's definitely times when I find people that are quite vexatious to me that I just don't want to be around them. So I choose not to. When it comes to situations where you can't not be together, it's been very rare in my life when I have had to be with someone who was so strongly opposite me. My work was never like that. I always had great people to work with. Also wasn't like that in the dojo. I don't ever remember having a student who really objected strongly to anything. I guess the main thing was someone who was uncomfortable with Shokushu, and actually asked to talk to me after class one day about it. They didn't like the repeating part, and there were parts of Shokushu that bothered them. And I was surprised. Well, I wasn't completely surprised, because to be honest, the first time I was in a class and they were doing Shokushu, I was like, oh, what is this? Because it was also the first few times was in Japanese, and it was like, I don't know what this is all about. I came to do Aikido kind of thing. So I kind of could understand this person's, uncomfortableness. And I just talked to the person about it and understood that it had to do with certain ones that were more difficult for this person than others, and they'd be happy to do some of them, but they didn't, So I just said, fine, whatever you're comfortable with, just do that, and that's fine. And it wasn't like I had any other issue with this person at all. It was just that, they had this part of training that they really did not want to participate in, is what it came down to. And we're such a small group that if somebody's not participating, it's pretty obvious. So it was good that we talked, and, we kind of got that, I think, cleared out, and I think the person was fine with how it ended up. In terms of some of the, thoughts about the COVID and mask wearing thing, when I lived in Japan, this was 30 years ago, and I had never seen anyone on the street walking around with a mask on. And when I first saw it in Japan, I understood they probably had a cold, and so that's why they were doing it. But my American mind was like, wow, that's such a kind of seemed to overdo it or something. And yet when I thought about it, it's like, well, this is it's a different environment. It's a very big city, very crowded city, people everywhere, squished on the subway, squished on the trains. So it's, you know, I came to really appreciate the use of it and why people were doing it. And it kind of solidified, I guess, for me, the difference between kind of the Japanese mindset versus the American mindset that I both like and dislike at the same time, which for me was part of the Japanese culture that I admired was more focus on the group and the importance of the group. And I think that has some really good benefits. And then the part of the American culture is the independence. And I think there are times when that is really good too, really helps with people having independent mind and saying what they feel and not being controlled by a group mentality. But they both have their drawbacks. And I think Americans need a lot more of the groupthink, and Japanese culture could probably, you know, use a little bit more of the independent think. But when the COVID thing hit and we were told to wear masks, I knew that was going to be a huge issue in America. I mean, people complain all the time about, you know, what their government has asked them to do. I mean, it used to be over non-smoking areas in bars or in restaurants. That used to be a huge deal. Then it was over seatbelt law. It's like, okay, well, we got over that, but now it's the whole mask. I mean, so I knew that was going to be a huge issue, which it has. And of course, then we have it turned into not just an issue, but a political issue. So now it's kind of doubled down. So it's interesting that the Asian cultures where there is more of a, you know, you need to do things to think about others, have done better generally than, certainly than in the US. So yeah, so that's it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I totally understand the whole, I remember my father when they passed the law to require seatbelts. He was livid. Like, what the hell is the government doing telling me what to do in my car? You know, and even today, I mean, even in Hawaii, I've seen they went through this whole petition of click it or ticket. You know, even and this is you know, you figured we've been required to do this for over 40 years now, and they're still trying to get the mindset trained here about just seatbelts. So yeah, mask wearing is also a big deal. You know, that infringes on my rights, and you know, again, it's. And even Toy Sense, I said, you know, Americans tend to be a little bit more independent thinking, which they need to get more group oriented. And he really liked the Japanese, telling the Japanese student, you need to ask why more often, you know, because you're just going along with it because I said so, and you need to know why. And yeah, that's what brings up with me when you talk about those things. Gloria Folstrom, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Sensei. I think maybe I'll change the tone, go a totally different direction, since we've talked a lot about relationships, though there's one that I could talk about. But I have to admit that when I moved to Hawaii, after a year, we came out for 1 year and were supposed to go back to Oklahoma, I didn't go back. And one of the things I loved about Hawaii was no snakes. So I will have to admit in front of everybody that I do not like snakes. I grew up in an area where we had rattlesnakes, water moccasins, and there's one other. It's a reddish one. Anyway, so we were always very careful about those things. I never really encountered one, but my sister found herself looking in the face to face with a bull snake, which is the big one, makes a lot of noise but can't hurt you. So we were always careful, and my mother was very good with a hoe. We'd see a snake and she'd get out her hoe and chop off the head of the snake. I never practiced those skills and don't want to. It made me feel better when I heard an interview with a botanist who studied mosquitoes. Now we know that mosquitoes generally, I don't know what you think of mosquitoes, but they tend to be kind of pesky. And she said that she would be fine with eradicating the ones that cause disease because they don't do anything useful. but she would keep one species that bites snakes. I'm not sure why, but they don't bite humans, they just bite snakes, and apparently the snakes don't have a problem with it. And just, dealing with nature, it's been brought to our attention that since we haven't had hordes of tourists, and when we were confined ourselves, we weren't supposed to be out doing a lot of things, all sorts of places that have been kind of doing badly in terms of nature started rebounding. Hanauma Bay is clear, the fish have multiplied, there are all sorts of things in places where plants have been trampled a lot or growing better. So it's like we humans don't have a very good relationship with the world that we live in. We still, I think too many people are still of the mind that we use nature, not that we live with it or that we appreciate it. And so one of the beautiful things about Aikido is, to love and protect all creation, which includes nature as well as people. I can identify with having difficulty with one person to switch because something happened in our dojo and one person got really annoyed with me, and there were a few reasons I could be annoyed with that person, not coming to class and being late, this kind of thing. But I realized that I had to change the way I related to that person. And I gradually was able to just kind of let go, relax, embrace this person. And when he came to class, I would say, I haven't practiced with so-and-so this class. And Sensei would smile because we sometimes sort of avoided each other, me for my different reasons and he for his. But it has slowly, we have gotten so that we are like we were friends like we were before, that the animosity has died down on his part, and my cautiousness on mine is let go. And so that again is, a learning experience, just dealing with someone who's not going to go away. I can't just, as they say, if toxic personalities, just leave them behind, go somewhere else. It was not a toxic personality, but it was somebody who was difficult. And either I could walk away from the dojo, which I had no intention of doing, or learn to accept this person, to love everything in spite of what was being difficult at the time. And in the end, everything kind of relaxed and we have grown closer again. So I think when we're thinking about loving all creation, we find it hardest to love the people around us that do things that we don't like, and it's been pointed out with our family. We often tend to treat our family, well, actually, they say most people treat their family members worse than they do even strangers, which is a little mind-boggling. That we need to be aware of how we are dealing with the people closest to us, because that, just like the saying that we have in our dojo, the way you do your Aikido is the way you live your life. The way we treat our family is the way we treat the rest of the world, or the rest of the people in the world around us. And so it makes me more aware and more patient with my son, who's the only family member I'm close to at this point, or live close to at this point. So that's kind of where I am. Thank you.
Thank you. You talk about mosquitoes, and the first time I came to Maui for a visit, I was staying in Kihei, and I had seen Suzuki Sensei in the afternoon when my flight came in, and we were chatting, and then he said, okay, tomorrow, meet me at the dojo and we'll do some training. I said, okay, and it was me and a couple other people that had come, and we're staying at a condo in Kihei, and I said, so I tell the other guys, okay, we're in Hawaii, so 6 a.m., let's go down to the beach, do an hour breathing practice. Oh yeah, okay, great, let's do that. So we put on our, shorts and t-shirt, and we go down to the beach, and we sit on the beach, put a little thing down, start breathing, and let me tell you what, I got ate up by mosquitoes. It was horrible. Worst breathing experience I've ever had. So right, I go to the dojo, and me there, and I've got mosquito bites all over, and I tell Suzuki Sensei, I go, oh Sensei, wow, we had an experience this morning. We got ate up by mosquitoes. He said, oh yeah? That happened to me too. He goes, one time Toy Sensei said, hey, let's do some breathing outside. He went and did some breathing outside, and he goes, I got ate up, but I did not kill one mosquito. He was sure to tell me he didn't kill one mosquito during his breathing session because, he just did not move. Where on the other hand, I was going, the whole time during my session because it was a horrible experience. With that, I would like to ask Ilaria how she does with this topic. Are you with us, Ilaria? Or are you frozen? She looks frozen.
Unstable connection.
Ah, unstable. You're back. How's this topic for you?
Let me know if you can't hear me or if I cut out.
Okay, we can hear you.
Last week when we read the 10 principles of daily life, I looked at number 2, love all creation, and I thought about how it's easy. It seems like we differentiate between living things, as in people around us, versus plants and animals. When I'm upset and it was caused by some other person, I take sauce or hitting a cat. So it's like, okay, here's a type of creation that I don't like right now, and this is the creation that will help me feel better. So that's what came up for me.
Yeah, there's a whole section. I encourage you to read the section in the book. It's pretty interesting. It talks about plants and animals, etc., in detail. And Toy Sensei really spent his time, I think, we'll read, discussing these topics so we could put these in the book. So it's really good. And I was also looking at the next few, going, okay, number 2, love all creation. Wow, that's a big topic. Where am I going to go with this? I didn't even, I went through a few things and said, well, we're just going to see what other people have to say and move from there. And with that, I did pick a short little story I want to read because I've never heard this story before, and it's pretty funny. A farmer got so old that he couldn't work the fields anymore. So he'd spend the day just sitting on the porch. His son, on the other hand, was still working the farm. He'd look up from time to time and see his father sitting there. And to himself, he would say, he's of no use anymore. He doesn't do anything. So one day, the son got so frustrated by this that he built a wooden coffin. He dragged it over to the porch and told his father to get in. Without saying anything, the father climbed inside the coffin, and after closing the lid, the son dragged the coffin to the edge of the farm where there was a high cliff. As he approached the drop, he heard a light tapping on the lid from the inside the coffin. He opened it up, and still lying there very peacefully was his father, who looked up at his son and said, I know you're going to throw me over the cliff, but before you do, may I ask you one favor? And the son said, sure, what is it? He said, please, throw me over the cliff if you like, but save this good wooden coffin because your children might need it soon. So with that, we'll close the class. And we'll look forward to next week. Thank you all very much. Domo arigatou gozaimashita. And have a good week, you all.